What is happening? It's Vince, and we've got another creepy episode. I love doing these. The scary, kind of unearthly. I almost said unweirdly, but that's not even a word. So let's get into this episode of the RR Show. 2 from Creepy Encounters, 1 from Glitch in the Matrix, and 1 spooky episode here on the RR Show. All right, so our first story comes from, like I said, r/Creepy Encounters. And a shout out to our friends at the Disturbed podcast. True horror stories. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so r/Creepy Encounters, posted by user StunningVanilla7916. Creepy neighbor. I, a 41-year-old female, live in Montana, and a few years ago, I was forced to relocate after my landlord decided to rent to her son. The community I had lived in for 11 and a half years had become incredibly expensive. $787,000 median home price. Unfortunately, I was forced to relocate to another city, and because of the unexpected move and associated costs, I moved in with a roommate. My roommate left to pursue better job prospects about 3 months after I moved in. Our unit was a triplex, so there were 2 gentlemen that inhabited the other units. I was never added to the lease as the property manager required a full deposit, and I was not in a financially healthy spot at the time. I remained in the unit for 1.5 years on my own, paying the rent and utilities. I became very good friends with the man in the unit closest to mine. We'll call the man Devin, a 52-year-old male. Devin was a disabled veteran in recovery. I also am a veteran, so he held a soft spot in my heart. We shared meals, hung out, and discussed all of life's mysteries, and we would look out for one another. Devin had gone to treatment for 6 weeks, and I had watched his cat while he was gone. Our friendship developed over the course of 1.5 years. Devin had expressed romantic interest. However, right from the beginning, I clearly informed Devin that I did not share those feelings, and we would never be more than good friends. Devin seemed to be lonely, which made sense. However, I am a person who requires alone time to recharge my batteries. I set strict boundaries for Devin, as he wanted to hang out all the time. I would catch him walking through the front yard multiple times a day to get the mail, which I believe was to see if I was outside so he could stop to chat. When I would leave in the morning to go to work, Devin always was outside to tell me I looked nice and to have a good day. I told him that made me feel uncomfortable and he should just send a text letting me know if he wanted to hang out and wait for a response. There were a couple of times I yelled at him for overstepping my boundaries. The first, I had got home and pulled into my garage. I was on a phone call and had stayed in the car. Devin looked through the garage window to see if I was home. I was annoyed but didn't really think much of it. The second, I was getting dressed in my room in the summer, so the window was cracked. I felt this was safe as the window was not in a place that anyone should be walking by it, as it was on my patio at the back of the home. I caught Devin peeking through. I lost it. I let Devin know under no uncertain terms his behavior was inappropriate and that if he did not respect my boundaries, we would no longer be friends. Last year, while I was still in the home, I asked Devin to watch my dog for a couple of days so I could go to a family event out of state. Devin was happy to help, and I was very appreciative. Not long after I returned, I started to notice strange things in my home. But I really just thought it was me. For instance, I would be fairly certain I had locked my door in the morning when I left for work, but when I returned, it would be unlocked. I would be sure I had shut off all the lights, but when I got home in the evening, one would be on. I really just thought it was absent-mindedness. Fast forward a couple of months, and my mom became sick with cancer. My sister watched my dog while I went to tend to my mom. My sister reached out to me and asked if anyone else had a spare key to my apartment. I let her know she had the only spare key, but asked why. Similarly, she had experienced the same issues with lights and locks. I had not shared my concerns with my sister prior to her communicating hers with me, as I really just doubted my own sanity. While I was out of town, I received a text from Devin asking if I had a potato he could borrow. I let him know I was out of state with my mom who was sick. Devin did not reply, which was out of character. But I had noticed a change in Devin's affect. He was more reserved and less friendly towards me. I thought it was probably something to do with my firm adherence to my boundaries, which was okay. He didn't have to like them, just respect them. When I got back to town one night, I stayed over at my sister's house after helping her move. As mentioned above, I was struggling financially, so I would carefully budget and plan my weekly meals. The morning before my sister's move, I had placed 3 pieces of bacon into a Ziploc bag to be used later for a BLT. When I returned the following morning, much to my disbelief, there were only 2 pieces of bacon. I held the bag in my hands, knowing that there had been 3. No longer did I doubt myself. I called my sister and let her know that someone had been getting into my house. I always keep the place locked. The only logical thing that could have happened is Devin made a copy of my key when he had watched my dog in the fall. My sister reminded me about the potato text. The potato in the counter basket was gone. I had enough information to be very certain my neighbor had violated my trust and was no friend. However, I still wasn't afraid of him. As I mentioned, he is a disabled vet and was somewhat feeble and sickly. I was not scared of a confrontation. I immediately went to the hardware store and purchased a camera that streams to your phone when the motion detector has been activated. I placed it facing the side door where Devin would enter. It also had a 2-way audio capability, so my plan was that when Devin decided to enter my home again, I would go see it and shout something over the camera to the effect of, "Get out of my house! Put the key you copied on the counter and never try to speak with me again, or I will contact law enforcement." As I wrote above, I was not on the lease and did not want to be homeless, so I could not turn to the property manager for help, and Devin knew it. In the evenings, I started placing a jug of cat litter and a kitchen chair in front of the door that I knew Devin was accessing the apartment from, but I never expected he would attempt to come in while I was at home, and really, he'd only taken a piece of uncooked bacon and a potato. Laying on the couch one night watching TV, I thought that I heard something sliding on the floor in the laundry room where the door was, but I knew there was no way he would come in while I was home. My cat was running around playing, so I decided it was probably just her and I was being paranoid because of all that had happened. The next morning, while I was changing my laundry, I noticed the litter and the chair had been pushed 3 to 4 inches. I checked the sensitivity of the camera and found that I was able to replicate by slowly opening the door. Devin tried to come in while I was home. Why? That morning, I took bear spray into the shower with me while my knees knocked. I was terrified. I felt vulnerable and violated. Devin knew that I knew now also. He knew that I had placed a barrier in the front of the door, and after that morning, he was never outside in the morning, nor did he walk through the yard to get his mail. I obtained a firearm for protection and did make a police report. The police officer was annoyed with me as I did not want him to approach Devin, as all Devin would need to do is to report me to the property manager and I would be homeless. I am grateful that whatever he was up to was apparently thwarted. The fact that he tried to come in while he knew I was home gives me the heebie-jeebies. I wonder if he went through my underwear, watched me while I slept, etc. Since my situation has greatly improved, I ended up moving out shortly after to take care of my mom. I got my own place again a few months ago. I will never put my trust in another neighbor for pet or house sitting again. It still blows my mind that I had some guy stealing from me and likely stalking me. This story just solidifies that one should always trust their gut. There were so many times that a red flag was screaming, and I thought I was just being crazy. Our next story comes from the subreddit r/CreepyEncounters, posted by user NarrowMix. Trust your instincts. I was working at a small business in Iowa when a man came in for an interview. He was polite enough, but didn't say much. Something just felt off. When my boss interviewed him, I stocked shelves, listening to the man answer our standard questions. What's your availability? Have you been arrested? Things like that. When he left, the manager asked me what I thought. I said, there's something weird about him. I got really bad vibes. The boss kind of chuckled at me and said we can't deny someone employment because of bad vibes. I took out my phone and Googled the man's name. He had been arrested a few months prior for threatening to shoot up a gas station after being accused of theft. He lied and said he had never been arrested. Is that a good enough reason not to hire someone? It was, and it may have saved my life. I remember September 2018, a beautiful clear day, the calmness broken by the sound of police cars flying down the road. A student had been murdered in the middle of the day on a nearby golf course. She had passed a group of men who very shortly later found her things abandoned on the ground. Concerned, they called management, and shortly after she was found, stabbed to death, her body floating in a pond. Everyone was in shock. This was the second murder of a young student in Iowa in just a few weeks. Was it a disgruntled golfer, a jealous lover? No. The young woman had simply been at the wrong place at the wrong time. She did not know her killer. He didn't know her. He was a homeless man who was in the woods by the golf course, saw an opportunity, and took it. He had a fantasy about raping and killing a woman. The next day, the story made headlines. Plastered on the front was the killer's face. My stomach turned when I saw him. He looked so familiar. I didn't recognize the name, but then again, I've never been good with names. But I remember stories, and I Googled his name. The same story about a man being arrested for threatening to shoot up a gas station came up, and I instantly knew who he was. It was the same man I convinced my boss not to hire. At the job, the majority of the shifts, there was only one or two of us working. I would have been alone with this guy at so many points, so many slow hours with few customers, so many blind spots, so many opportunities to be alone with him. It only took a few minutes for a murder to occur on a beautiful day on a golf course. So yes, trust your instincts. Our next story comes from the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix, and it is posted by user SeriousAd9704. We teleported? I joined Reddit and this sub a while ago because I think about my glitch experience at least weekly. I finally have enough karma to post it. Please let me know what you think, because it'll drive me crazy to my grave not understanding this. This was in 2016 or 2017. My friend and I were driving through a quiet, small neighborhood in Traverse City, Michigan. It was a rainy day, middle of the day. We were stone cold sober. I feel like I need to say that to feel validated. We passed a street and I mentioned something about our friend Ashley recently moving to a house on that street. For the sake of the story, I think it was Fern Street or something like that. The next thing we know, we were stopped at a sign at a T in the road. An older model, olive greenish convertible was turning left off the cross street onto the street we were stopped at. The guy driving it had to jerk his wheel super hard to avoid hitting us as he made the turn. It was like he didn't see us until he was halfway into his turn. I looked over at my friend, and she was already looking at me. I looked back outside and did not recognize a damn thing. It was now a sunny day, and our entire surroundings were completely unfamiliar. My friend was like, I'm scared, where are we? And I kept asking her the same thing. I asked if she almost saw the car hit us, and neither of us knew where we were or what was happening. Suddenly, everything became familiar again. It was like our entire surroundings morphed into a recognizable intersection, and I was like, we were right near the Sail Inn, a bar we knew. The weather was rainy again, and we knew the exact intersection we were stopped at. I asked my friend what she remembered last before we got to the stop sign, and she remembered me talking about the Fern Street. That was the last thing I remembered too. So we drove back to that street, and it was 3 blocks down the road. My friend hates being reminded of this day because it still scares her and haunts me too, because I'm so fascinated by that experience. But I just want to know what happened to my mind, body, existence in those moments. The only thing I wish is that we knew what it was and how long it lasted. Felt like it was slow and fast at the same time. I don't know, man. Weird. I'll probably die trying to understand. And this is why I have FOMO about dying. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.